Good morning, students. Today I start with your new class on basic electronics, and in this I will be discussing on the topic of semiconductors. So here what we are going to cover in this particular unit. So first thing we are going to discuss is why we need semiconductors and what is the importance of semiconductors. What is the physics that is involved behind semiconductors, several current equations, and what is the role of semiconductor in devices which we are going to discuss in this course. So you are already familiar with periodic table. You have studied about periodic table several times in the past. So mostly all the elements can be classified into three different categories, namely your insulators, conductors, and semiconductors. So amongst this, the group 4 elements, here you can see I'm talking about group 4. These are group 4. So they are basically semiconductors. So why they are called semiconductors? The answer to them come in the slides. These are group 3 and these are group 5 elements. So they have their role to play when we are actually looking forward for other possibilities. Now next thing is silicon atom structure. Silicon is the most common semiconductor which we use. So silicon atomic number is 14. That means it has 4 number of electrons in its outer shell. As we know that no element can lie open in the atmosphere, what is being done? They actually make covalent bond with its neighbors and share bonds and thus make a strong bond enough so that they can exist in the environment. So this form is silicon crystal lattice. So here what we can observe that a bond is being formed, and this bond can be used for sharing, so thus completing the octet of a particular atom. So it is having now 8 atoms in the outer octet, so it is stable. So covalent bond is also the strongest bond in the nature, as you already know. Now before we move ahead, I would like to discuss the concept of energy bands. So basically the bands can be of two types. One is valence band, another is conduction band. So the outermost band in which your device is having electron, atom is having electron at absolute zero is called valence band. And when after gaining certain energy, the electron move out of the shell, that is called conduction band. It is unfilled band. Here you can see these are filled bands and this is your unfilled band. So if you provide some energy, your device moves to your your thing about valence band is and conduction band is clear. Now we will move towards the band gap. Now what is band gap? As already know that your device is comprising of valence bands, filled one, and conduction band empty bands. So the energy required to be provided to electron so that it can move from conduction band to valence band is called band gap. So here you can find out that E denotes energy, EV denotes energy of the valence band, and EF is the Fermi level, and EC is the conduction band. E naught is the free space. So your device moves from valence band to conduction band and from conduction band to free space so that it can participate in the conductivity of the devices. Now you are having valence band and conduction band. So in between we are having a level called Fermi level. So Fermi level is actually probability of finding an electron. So normally it is 1 by 2, because in a particular orbital we notice that an atom has two things. One is parallel, anti-parallel. They are anti-parallel things. That means spin is opposite. So a level have at most of 2 electrons. So there is 50% possibility of locating electron in the level. So this is for a normal semiconductor which we are talking about. Now, when we talk about insulator, semiconductor and metal, we have different band gap arrangements. Insulator, your band gap is around 8 electron volts. That means this much energy is required for a electron to jump from this level to this level. Similarly, in semiconductor, 1.1 electron volt energy is required for electron to jump from valence band to conduction band so that it can conduct. And in metal, your conduction band and valence band are overlapped. So metal, you already know that it has free electrons, that makes your conduction possible. So this is about your band gap comparison of this. So from here you can easily know that your semiconductor can be ideal choice for converting a device into insulator or conductor. So it is in between these two. So this is about electron volts. So this is the unit in which your band gap is being measured. So it is said that 1 electron volt is the amount of energy gained by an unbound electron when passed through an electrostatic potential of 1 volt, and it is 1 volt unsigned charge of single electron. 1 volt is equal to joule per coulomb, and V into C is joule into Y column is equal to unit of joules. So 1 electron volt is equal to 1.6 into 19 joules. So 1 electron volt is semiconductor, so much greater than 1 electron volt and insulator. So no band gap, it is a metal. So it is, if more than that, it is insulator, otherwise it is a semiconductor, or if there is no band gap, then it is a metal. So this is for silicon, and I am using the term intrinsic semiconductors, that is pure semiconductor or intrinsic silicon, in which I have not added any impurity, it is pure. So later on I will discuss other types of semiconductors also, in extrinsic mainly. So at 0 Kelvin, that means absolute zero, your band gap is 1.17 electron volts, and at room temperature your band gap is 1.14 electron volts. So this is the band gap. Your Fermi level is in between there, and this is your valence band, and this is your conduction band. And when you give sufficient energy, your electron will jump from valence band to conduction band, and it start participating in making your device conducting, and so on. And your Fermi level is in between these two levels. Now, this band gap is quite a high thing, and normally it is not being preferred to be used. So what we can do, we need some sort of doping or adding intentionally some impurity so that this band gap can be lowered, so that this energy requirement can be overcome easily. So what we are doing, we are adding some impurity, and the adding of impurity into a semiconductor is called doping. So here you can see this is a silicon atom, and it is actually sharing electrons with its neighbors. So now in doping, what we do, we replace silicon atom with some other atom. So when we talk about doping, what we actually do, we select material either from group 3 of the periodic table or group 5 of periodic table. So the impurity or material from group 3 are being used as p-type impurity, and this makes your electron deficient thing, because when you are adding an atom which is have 3 electrons access, what happens, a vacancy is created. Normally in the vicinity of silicon 8 electrons are there, 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 from silicon, 4 from other silicon. So if you replace silicon with some other atom, it is having suppose 3. So what happens, a vacancy is created anywhere. So this is vacancy is created. So now holes are there, or we can say positive charge is there. So it is converted into p-type silicon. And if you are having a pentavalent impurity or impurity from group 5, what happens? We have an excess electron. So thus excess of electron make your semiconductor electron excess electron thing. So it is basically n-type silicon. So when silicon is doped, your normal silicon is actually converted into extrinsic silicon. So this is very important term right now. So this is your periodic table as I've already discussed. So this is your group 3 and this is your group 5. So they are basically being used as dopant. So your group 3 are called trivalent and group 5 are called pentavalent. So boron, indium, gallium and aluminium, they are being used as trivalent, and aluminium is rarely used. Similarly, phosphorus, antimony and bismuth are extensively used for n-type impurities. So what we do, suppose this is your antimony. So antimony atomic number is 51. So that means it is having 5 electrons in the valence shell or the outer shell. So what happens? We actually replace a silicon with your antimony thing. So this gives us a 1 free electron. So 1 free electron means excess of electrons. So thus your device is actually now converted from intrinsic to extrinsic, and extrinsic it can be classified into n-type. So how we have achieved this? We have achieved this by doping with n-type impurity, and your bismuth antimony is one of those impurities. Now what happens in n-type doping? This is your silicon crystal. It is like this, and here we have arsenic doped. So you're having excess electron. So this is n-type doping, and your silicon thing is being converted into extrinsic semiconductor. Now doping silicon can achieve a donor concentration between this and this. That means you are adding this much concentration per centimeter cube, 10 to 13 atoms per centimeter cube to 10 to 18 centimeter per cube into silicon. So due to that, what happens? Normally in silicon we have electron pairs. So adding impurity will tends to degenerate the things. So the density of the silicon is 10 to 4 atoms per centimeter cube. So your doping can be of 3 types, and you have 3 symbols being used extensively in the books: n minus, n and n plus. So when you are actually lightly doping, so that means you are adding electrons, this much atoms, it is being denoted as Nd, donor impurity. And it is normal doping, 10 to 15 per centimeter cube, and heavy doping, any doping greater than 17 centimeter, 10 to 17 centimeter cube is this. So that means in terms of atoms, 1 in 10,000, 1 is in a million, 1 is in 100 million atoms you are actually replacing. So that means it does not mean that if you are making a intrinsic semiconductor to n-type, so it is having excess of electrons, but it has holes also, but they are in minority. So majority carriers in n-type are electrons, while minority carriers are holes. So any vacancy created due to substitution of trivalent impurity or p-type impurity is called hole. Now, what is the effect of doping on band diagrams? So when we have not done any doping, your Fermi level is intrinsic Fermi level. This is your valence band and this is your conduction band. It lies in between these two levels. Now when you have actually doped your device with n-type impurity, what happens? Your device is actually working as more number of electrons here. So this tends to lower the Fermi level. Fermi level moves closer to this level. So now you need to move to this level to find more number of electrons as compared to this level. So this is called shifting of Fermi levels. So mind it, when you are adding donor type impurity or pentavalent impurity, group 5 element into semiconductor, your Fermi level will move in the upward direction. Now similar to n-type doping, we have p-type doping. So here you have p-type material being doped. So because of that, what will happen? A vacancy is created because boron have 3 electron in the outer shell. So one vacancy is created or hole is created. So because of that, we have a p-type material from extrinsic semiconductor. So here you can find out that intrinsic Fermi level has moved down. So now this is called accepted level impurity, acceptor impurity. So Fermi level lies more closer to valence band. So remember, when you are actually going for doping, what happens? Your device actually moves in the this direction and your Fermi level shifts downwards. So a simple way is, suppose you are having a fulcrum, here you are having 5 kg, here you are having 5 kg, it is in the center. So if you are making it 7.5 kg, what you have to do is you have to move it here so that a balance is created. So that's why your doping levels or Fermi levels are moving accordingly. For p type it is here, for n type it is here, so that your system remains in equilibrium. So thank you very much, and in the next class we will be discussing about numerical things related to this particular course and semiconductors.